right, so what we have here is it's an Iver Johnson. It's a 410 single shot, break action shotgun. It's in pretty nice shape. It's been, taken care of. It got a lot of age, a little bit of wear, some dings and dents, but overall, it's a nice little gun. The problem with this is somebody drilled and tapped a hole for a front sight, and that's not so bad, but it's in the wrong spot. It's tipped at about 11 o'clock. So it's a little off center. It's not vertical. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill that hole and we're gonna drill and tap it for a much better location for a front sight. Come on along, we'll see how we fill this and repair it. All right, so first thing we're gonna do, we'll take this apart. The handguard, these handguards just pop into place. They just kind of lock in. They're spring loaded, and it's like a little indent there that there's a little spring goes there. They just pop off, and then when we do the brake action, this whole thing just kind of lifts out. So we'll set our stock and receiver aside. We'll take a look at the barrel, and we'll see how it's been buggered up, and we'll fix it. All right, so here I have it set up, and the lug, we're figuring this is vertical, so it's directly underneath the line of the barrel. And we'll set that on a square flat bench. And I've got this wood, so we're not, because that little pin there's kind of wobbly. Okay, so that's our vertical. And if we look over here, we can see that that's a little off center. And it's been it's been drilled and tapped for a 6x48 thread, and nothing wrong with that necessarily. But for a 410, this should probably be drilled and tapped for a 3x56. That'd give us that nice little front bead, which would be appropriate for this small little barrel. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill this 6x48 hole, and we'll put a 3x56 in there. All right, not sure how well you're seeing this, but we can see it's got a pretty good threaded hole there, and it is just a little bit off center, a little bit off top dead center. So we're gonna fill this, and we've got a couple of options. Okay, for one is I could mix up some JB weld, and I could pack that hole, and then we'll file it down, sand it down, and then drill it where it should be. Another option is I could take it over to the welder. I could weld a little bead in there, my wire feed, and I could put a little steel in there and then weld that there. File that down. The problem with that is it's going to burn, might lose a temper, could warp the barrel. That's excessive heat. If we can avoid the weld, we're going to avoid that. Another option is I could just cut this barrel off. I'd lose maybe about 5/16 of an inch, and then just drill for a new bead back here. But I would sacrifice a little bit of my barrel length. Okay, but what I'm going to try is I'm going to take a 6x48 screw. I'm going to run it in there, torque it down as best I can. I'm going to use some high strength Loctite. This is 262, which is their high strength Loctite. So I'll clean that hole out. We'll Loctite it. I'll run that screw in, torque it down the best I can, let that Loctite set up, and then I'll cut it off and file it and smooth it, and then we'll blue that, and we'll see if that's maybe the best way to fill that. But that's the approach I'm gonna take. I have other options, but that's what I'm gonna take. I'm gonna put that 6x48 screw in there, and then we'll drill the that 3x56 thread later. All right, so I've got a little denatured alcohol on a Q-tip. I'm just going to try to clean that hole out because I want to have a good thing I'm cleaning this out. It's pretty dirty in there. But I want to have a good bond with that Loctite. And that denatured alcohol is going to dry really quick. And I'll be able to get a nice clean hole where that Loctite will go. And it's a good thing. It looked nice and clean, but we got a little bit of dirt out of there, so we got a better purchase now for that Loctite. I'll let that alcohol evaporate for a sec. I'm going to take my 6x48 thread screw, and I've got, whoa, I just kicked the camera, and I'm going to lock this down with that Loctite on there. This is the 262, which is the high strength Loctite, and we're going to put a little bit in that hole. There we go. Just a drop will do you. And then I'm just going to take that 6x48 thread screw and we'll just thread it into that hole. Ooh. I'm trying not to block the camera, so I'm not giving myself the best angle to work with here. All right, I can feel that thread taken up. All right, we'll lock this down the best we can. We'll torque this 6x48 screw in that hole, and we'll get this locked down the best we can. All right, so there, pretty good torque on there. We got a few threads, went in maybe 3 or 4 times around, so we got a few threads, and we'll let that 262, there, that's as tight as I can get it. We'll let that 262 Loctite set up overnight, and then tomorrow what we'll do is we'll come down, we'll cut this off, and we'll file it nice and smooth, and we'll blue it and drill a new hole. All right, so what I've done is I've let this sit overnight, and it's not been quite 24 hours, but it has been overnight. So I'm hoping that 262 Loctite's as solid as it's going to get. I could have taken my Dremel and ground this down, but I'm afraid of heating up that Loctite. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a hacksaw, cut this off, and then gently file it down until I get it smooth. And I'll blend that in with the barrel. But like I said, probably the easiest thing would be to just grind that down. But that's going to generate a lot of heat, and I don't want to do that with this barrel. So I am going to take my high tensile strength hacksaw, and we're just going to cut the head of this off. So I'm going to kind of reach in front of the camera here as we just kind of take the head of this. There we go. All right, and we've got that blue tape on there, so we're not scratching up the barrel. It was just I got it very, very close to the edge of the tape. There's not much burr, and I'll just take my file now and we'll bring that down a bit. So let's see, let's see, just be very gentle here, not hit that tape. Try to round this the best we can. You can hear the sound difference as I'm getting through down to the level of the tape. All right, there we went through the tape there. We'll stop there. All right, so that's very, very smooth. We're at the level of the tape. All right, so now we can take our tape off, see how we did. This is going to have to get re-blued, and I'll just do a cold bluing on that screw head, or that screw that we took the head off. And then we'll drill it and tap it with that 356 tap for that new bead. All right, I'll just kind of polish it up with some. It's going to have to get re-blued just so it all matches. So I'm going to try to just kind of blend that with a little bit of sandpaper, and we'll get this all ready to be drilled and tapped again. All right, so here's what we have. You can see what's left of, you can see just that little bit of a circle. That's where the hole got filled. We got her pretty smooth. That's going to be good. But if you look, there's other damage on this barrel. You can see here there's like this little marks here. Somebody had this barrel in a vise and did not have protective jaws on it. So there's gonna be a little more cleanup than I originally thought. There you can see it was held in a vise. You can see those little dents. And then you kind of see there's what's left of the screw hole that we filled. And there's some other damage there on the barrel. But we're able to keep those rings around the barrel, and we'll just drill that for a new site. So it's only gonna be a little bit more cleanup than I expected, but I think when we're done, this is gonna look like a nice restoration. All right, so there you get to see my shop floor, and there you get to see the barrel. There's the replaced, that's where we screwed the hole. And there's the damage from the vise. We'll get that cleaned up the best we can. I'm just doing a little shoe shine technique here with some 320 sandpaper, and we'll get that all cleaned up. All right, so I've got it set up. I've got it in my vise. I got my vise turned a little bit, so I've got this support here underneath the end of the barrel. So when I do go to use my center punch, I don't have to worry about that barrel moving on me. So I've got a nice solid base. I can mark my hole. I'm going to use my Optivisor, so I'm very precise, very accurate. I'm using my brass hammer, and I'm going to use this center punch to locate the position for that front bead. I've got her set up in my drill press. It's level. I've got it padded here. Just use electrical tape to pad it, and I've smooth jaws on this drill press vise. But now we're going to be drilling. I've got the number 45 drill bit, which is appropriate for that 3x56 tap. Put a little cutting fluid on there, and what we'll do now is we'll just drill this. Get ready to tap. All right. So we've got our alignment here. My smallest tap handle, the 3x56 tap, and you got to buy your taps in bulk. Let's go ahead and thread this on there. You feel it cutting in. Back up to break that little chip off. We'll cut a little bit more. Okay, it just so happens I have an old shotgun bead front sight, an antique one that came off an antique shotgun that we had some barrel damage. We had to cut the barrel down, and then we put a different size bead on. But this one here should be a good match, an old bead on an old barrel. So we'll get this threaded in there, see how it fits, make sure it's lined up so it's vertical, and then we'll re-blue this. All right, so we got that bead on there. Look at that. And if we look down there, it is right top dead center. So we did just what we were supposed to do. We got it located exactly how we wanted it. There's a little test fit. We'll get this blued up. We'll be all good to go. All right, so after I got that bead, you imagine these great big hands and that little tiny bead and that 3x56 thread trying to get that in there. Well, it took me way too long. It had been made a whole video by itself and probably been quite funny. But after I got it started and threaded in there, I just took my parallel jaw pliers, I padded the jaws with it, and then just tightened it down. So now we've got that bead in place. It's solid, it's tight, we're good to go. Now let's put it all back together. All right, so after a little bit of blending, bluing, browning, trying to get the barrel to match the way it was, we got that front bead sight, and it's not perfect. There is, I mean, you can see here, you can see that it does, if you were to look hard, you can see it. But we did see that there was evidence that this gun was in a vise before. We saw that. And we know that that front bead sight was replaced. We said it was a 6x40 thread and it was off center. This barrel has been cut down. On these Iver Johnsons, they either came with a 26 or 28 inch barrel. This one measures out to about 24 3/4. So we know that at least, what is that, 1 1/4 inches, if my math is right, at least 1 1/4 inches was taken off. We don't know the history of this gun. We don't know why, but it was probably done with a hacksaw, and somebody drilled it with a hand drill, and they did the best they could. So we've had to go in and kind of redo some of that work, and we did it better. But this old gun is probably worth a lot more as a fairly, as a family heirloom. It has a lot more sentimental value than it does resale value. But we got it to where it's lined up. It's not noticeable. It's functional. That bead sight is now centered, and it still does retain a lot of its original look. So this will probably become a wall hanger. Like I said, it's a family heirloom. And the young man who owns this, he's probably just gonna hang it on a wall and probably never shoot it. But it's gonna look right when he does take it down and show it to his friends. It's not gonna be noticeable that front sight's off, because now it's right back on. So we made it a lot better than it was, and isn't that our goal, right? Do no harm, and a little bit of improvement. But that bead sight now is right where it should be, and that screw hole is almost unnoticeable. You'd have to I have to get really close to see that. But there we go. All done, and pretty proud of it.